Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here again. I always forget to adjust my volume. Now everything is okay. I'm really hoping that with these lives you can know more about your body, how it functions, how it thinks, how it reacts to the environment outside and to everything we give it to it. And this way we can make informed decisions when we proceed to healing what we are dealing with, and finally to build a stronger body. So today we'll be talking about tight clothes. Before getting into the tight clothes, we'll be talking about the lymphatic system, the glymphatic system, and we'll make analogy between glymphatic system and the blood flow, which are all part of the circulatory system of our body. Then we'll talk about the diaphragm and what does the diaphragm do and how it relates to the lymphatic system, and the decreased flow of breath, and what happens actually when we have decreased flow of breath and how that causes a disease finally. We'll talk about tight clothes, and yes, I hope you enjoy this lecture. It's not going to be very long, and after I finish, I will be available to take questions if you have any questions. So let's start with the lymphatic system. What is the lymphatic system? It uses the same principles as the veins to collect through pulsating in the nearby arteries and the contraction of its own muscles along the walls of the lymphatic vessels. A very important thing to know is that this system doesn't have a pump. The cardiovascular system has the heart and also the muscles along the veins that are helping to pump the blood flow. The lymphatic system has only the muscles. It has very low pressure inside of their vessels, and it relies on the veins pumping into the lymphatic system. So how do we activate the lymphatic system? Well, we do trampoline. We also do the Stairmaster, everything that in the gyms, everything that would shake a little bit the body, not too much. When you do a trampoline, they're supposed to be like gentle shakes on the trampoline to try to enhance the work of the lymphatic system. There are also lymphatic massages, which are extremely important. I do one of those types where the client is very active. We have to breathe in and out together in order to open those important draining vessels. For a healthy person, this type of massage is done once a year. If you're dealing with anything, could be more often than that. And if you're dealing with cancer, you have to have a clearance from your doctor that this can be done on you. So yes, the lymphatic system lacks pumping organ, and you have to know that very well. The vessels have tiny little muscles on their walls, and those muscles can in a way do that job, pump fluid, but it's not really enough, and that's why very often it becomes stagnated. So the vessels of the lymphatic system travel superficially close to the skin along the veins, or they travel very deep into the body together with the arterial vessels. And yes, this is important to know because when we have some swelling along the body, you know that this is a vessel or a lymphatic vessel. I mean, blood vessel or lymphatic vessel. What are the major organs of the lymphatic system? I will mention them quickly because I believe that for every one of us, it's important to understand and to know about them. First, we have the lymph nodes. They have a bean shaped like a form, and they serve as filters for the immune system. Those nodes very often get stagnated and they inflame because they cannot expel the fluid that collects in them. So then we have the spleen, an extremely important organ which produces, also breaks down and gets rid of red blood cells which are not fit to work. So this organ is vital for the immune system, and you will see how all the rest I'll be mentioning are related to the immune system. Then we have the thymus. Thymus is a gland somewhere here which secretes the T cells. T cells, again, related to the immune system. Then we have the tonsils. Tonsils are those organs that have to trap every bacteria that goes into our body, which is not a favorable bacteria. And what do we do with the tonsils? We take them out. Very good. Instead of healing the organs, we take it out because it's so much easier. I am one of those who don't have any tonsils. Yeah. They've been taken out. Then we have the appendix, another organ that we like to take out. The appendix is the blueprint of bacteria. It helps defend against invaders for the immune system. So all the organs I've mentioned so far are related to the immune system, and that's what the lymphatics are doing. We also have along the intestines, they call them Peyer's patches, which keep the intestinal flora at appropriate levels. Those patches are also preventing a large number of infections along the intestines. You know very well that our colon is very much related to the lymphatic system and to the immune system. So that's why it's important to mention those patches. Then we have, which is called MALT, which is mucosa associated lymphoid tissue. That tissue is in our nose, in our mouth. It's also in the lungs and in the digestive system. And the mucosa is the moist tissue that aligns those organs, and it also has specific antigens that the mucosa is taking care of. So what happens when the fluid is accumulated in the lymphatic vessels and does not want to move? Well, the pressure in the veins increases, and we get stagnated fluids in our body that leads to inflammation, to edema, to Hodgkin's lymphoma, and other diseases. So shortly, this is the pathway of disease. We have stagnated fluids, we have pressure and inflammation in the organs around, in the tissues around. Then that stagnated fluid might, cells of it, circulate throughout the body and cause more inflammation and more troubles, and also bacteria, fungi can get trapped into it, and they can get to a place where they don't belong. Now, as I said, the second thing we'll be doing is to make a parallel between lymphatic and blood flow. What is the difference? So throughout the body, the lymphatic fluid movement supports very critical functions, including clearance of excess fluid and metabolic waste. If you imagine our digestive system as a pipe, that means everything which is on the entrance has to be assimilated or utilized, and then released through the exit. Not every time it happens like that. Unfortunately, the organism, because we are one big organism, sometimes does not have the energy to deal with all this, including to expel what it doesn't need. So it stores it. And there comes the problem. When our body stores what it cannot expel, I also refer to drugs we're taking. This is called the side effects. When the drugs accumulate, they accumulate in the weakest part of our body. So when the organism cannot expel those, it starts chambering it. It covers it, and to protect the entire body, it puts them away to deal with them later on. But if that flow of things our body cannot expel continue coming in, you understand that those chambers are never worked on, because the body has to keep us alive, and it has to clean and cleanse us just as well. So this is what is happening with the lymphatic system as well. It causes stagnation of fluids. The lymphatic system is analog of the lymphatic system. By the way, it has been discovered in about 2012, 2013. And it serves the central nervous system, which is our brain and the spinal cord. So it cleans the brain and it delivers nutrients to the brain. What kind of nutrients? Glucose, lipids, amino acids, and others like neurotransmitters, for instance. What I would like to mention also about the cerebrospinal fluid is that it starts moving from our pelvic floor area up the spinal cord to the brain. It does that twice in 24 hours. And for that fluid to move, it's very important that we move, because when we move, when we walk, when we do things around, the body moves like this, which is very important. It's called the lemniscate movement, which helps pumping that fluid to go up to the brain to defy the gravity. And that's why sitting for a very long time on a chair is not a good idea. So this fluid can be, I wouldn't say, for lack of a better word, artificially moved up another time, a part of those 2 times, through meditation. There are different techniques, which I'm doing with my clients, that can move the fluid up to the brain to do its cleansing more than twice a day in 24 hours. So, and I wanted to note that sleeping is absolutely crucial for this lymphatic system to work properly. By the way, there was a research that stated that sleep apnea can cause Alzheimer's in 70% of the people who have sleep apnea. So you see how important it is. That means if we have interrupted sleep, the fluid cannot get properly to the brain and clean and cleanse the brain. Then the brain might suffer, literally suffer. And can lose parts of it and functioning, and that can cause different type of diseases. So what is the diaphragm? Let's go. I'm not going to talk exactly about the blood flow because I wanted to make just a difference in your mind between the lymphatic system and the blood vessels. So you know what is the blood flow, you know what are the vessels, arteries and veins. So this is the difference. What is the diaphragm? The diaphragm is the most important muscle in the human body. And it's unfortunate that most of the trainers don't work with it. They work with the lymph muscles mostly and some core muscles. But if the diaphragm doesn't work properly, we're in a big trouble here. So it almost never gets a special attention. And what is that muscle exactly? It's a dome-shaped muscle, which is just below our lungs, above our organs. So when you are breathing in, that muscle goes down, puts pressure on the organs, and nicely massages those organs. In the meantime, in the lungs, they expand as much as they can and they fill in with air. When you breathe out, that dome-shaped muscle ascends up and it pushes the lungs, it squeezes them so they can expel the toxins out of our lungs. At the same time, the organs have the chance to accept flow that goes into them to cleanse them, to deliver nutrients and other things like that. So when we are wearing tight-fitting clothes, this is not a good idea because we trap this muscle. We trap the fluids. The muscle cannot move up and down in its optimum movement, and this way we don't expel all the carbon dioxide we're supposed to expel from the lungs, and at the same way we don't get as much oxygen as our body needs in order to function properly. Also, for decades there's been conversation about breast cancer and underwire. And why I'm talking about the underwire, because it's part of those tight clothes, the underwire really pressing tight on the rib cage, and that is obstructing the diaphragm movement just as well. Then you have also the underwire goes under the breast, under the armpit, and it suppresses the lymph nodes to properly drain. If we're not draining throughout the pipe, the colon, and we're not draining through the lymph nodes, then we get inflammation. And that inflammation leads to disease. So that means the toxins aren't adequately flushed out. And instead building up in the body, that can lead to cancer. Remember, in the beginning, I explained the chambers. So some of those chambers are benign, but others become malignant. So they become a cancer. What is the problem with the cancer? The problem is that the cancer doubles. And when it becomes big enough, and that big enough cancer, when it starts doubling and the double doubles and the double doubles, actually that's the way the doctors know when you're gonna die. They know that a cancer of this size, it doubles, I believe, every 3 weeks. When it doubles big enough, it becomes big enough, so it starts pressing on the arteries. That means you're not going to get oxygen to the brain, for instance, and then you will die. That's why they give to the people, you have 6 months, you have 3 years. They know how the cancer will spread, they know the pathways, and they know how the cancer will double. So how can improper clothing cause a disease? When clothes are too tight, corsets, belts as well, a lot of people wear really tight belts. Breathing can be obstructed due to the fact that the diaphragm cannot descend upon inhalation in order to the lungs to fill up properly with air. So constant lack of air does what? It disturbs the brain function, for example, and causes also blood not to function, not to move properly. When clothes are too tight, like skirts, shirts, pants as well, then the body circulation and the skin function also is compromised. Compromised circulation can lead to undesired tissue formations. Again, we get to inflammation and those chambers, those formations like cancer-like formations or tumor-like, if you want a benign tumor-like formation. Also, have in mind that improper shoes, tight shoes, are a really bad idea. The food has to spread so well and wide, so to be able to get all the information that comes from the ground through the brain in order for the brain to align the entire body to defy the gravity and to move forward and to do all those functions. So if you have a food that is squeezed in your shoe, that information goes only partially up. And what happens very often, people also get lower back pain. They go increasingly tension in their calf muscles and other changes in the rib cage position, and this is changing in the breathing and etc. It's like a domino effect of the bad stuff that is happening into the body. So this is about the improper shoes, mostly relates to the postural changes. If you wear them for long enough, you really can cause very serious postural imbalances that can cause to diseases, because what happens in the postural imbalance, our body changes the position of the bones and the muscles rearrange themselves and they start twisting, turning, moving forward, backwards, on the side, and etc. the entire structure. The organs in the body have certain positions which, if they maintain, they work in their optimum capacity. Optimum capacity means no stagnation of fluids in the organs, so they can work in an optimum way to clean, cleanse, produce, and be nourished, and etc. When you have a postural change, an organ goes lower than its position for optimum work, or higher, or to the left or to the right. That means those fluids that cleanse the organ cannot really reach, and this organ starts stagnating. It gets inflammation, and on the chain, then it gets diseased. So also too much or too little clothing can cause a problem of the body, like too much clothing in cold weather lowers the resistance to external weather factors. The individual becomes more susceptible to changes in the temperature than those who are clothed reasonably. So it's the same happens with too little clothing. On the other hand, it calls for the expenditure of greater nerve force in maintaining body temperature. That means the body works double in order to maintain your body temperature if it's too little clothes. So in recap, what can I say? People abuse themselves physically all day. And it's very sad because the final result is diseased body. They wear those shapewear body wraps, which are all in elastic women undergarments, which purpose is to coil around like a python and squeeze that body, all the excess flesh, so it doesn't show off. And in result, the diaphragm gets stagnated, and the body really have to only do what it can do to survive. It cannot do more than that. And then it becomes stagnated. The fluids of the body becomes stagnated, and they cause inflammation. So my analogy, just to explain what is the feel when the diaphragm is so obstructed, would be when you step on a thin ice. You know how you step, you walk, you know that the ice can break and you can fall and wet yourself in cold water, and this is very unpleasant feeling. Then you hold kind of your breath becomes very shallow. That means that the dome doesn't expand up to push the lungs to expel the air, neither ascends really low to massage the organs or give the lungs enough room to breathe in and get all the air the person needs. So that what happens. Or if you have been to those towers or high places up where you step on a glass surface and you're shaking, you're up in a tower to see the entire city, you walk on that glass and you can't wait to step on a surface where you don't see underneath your feet. That is what is happening in your diaphragm. You hold your breath and breathe shallow. So imagine if you live like that for days and days, and that will cause a disease finally, absolutely for sure. And below this post is the post I did from my book, Walking Next to Cancer, where I worked with cancer patients. And one of the lady who got colon cancer actually was spending days and hours when in this tight body wear, just to impress people that she looks good and etc. On the top of it, she would sleep only 3-4 hours a night, and very how to say, expectedly, she ended up with a very serious cancer. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say about all these tight clothes, how important it is to be comfortable and not to think of what the others see, and to think about how you would project your happiness and joy to the others, because that's what they would see. They won't see the excess flesh, and they won't keep their attention on it. If you are nice and cheerful, smiling, and make a connection with people. So tight clothes can really cause disease. Remember, tight belts, shirts, skirts, pants, they can squeeze so much the flesh that not only the veins but even arteries cannot pump properly the blood flow or the fluids that go through them in order to deliver to the entire body. And if you spend this way, your body coiled like that and wrapped like in a python, if you spend for hours like that, for sure there will be a very negative effect. If you have any questions about tight clothes, lymphatic system, glymphatic system, you can ask me now. I'm available. If not, thank you very much for watching. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Buki. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for being here. That's what I see. I don't know if I mentioned every person who is watching, but yeah, it was a pleasure for me to do this live for you. I hope that will help you, and you spread the word to other people when you see them with tight clothes, to mention that maybe they should think of wearing more comfortable wear, so not to do this to their body, because in the long run it's not a good idea. Do you have any questions? Okay, so then I will say goodbye to all of you. Thanks a lot for watching this live.
Leave a question or comment and we'll be glad to answer. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to follow and subscribe.